This week on Lemon's Car Spotting.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Lemon's Car Spotting. I'm Eric, that's Nick, and we're going to talk about the crappy cars you see. You guys know how this works, so let's just go right at it.
All right, we're going to start off with, this is what I like to call Stockton style, and it's a Central Valley, California tradition that goes back to at least the 70s of driving around with no hood and with no intention to ever install a hood. And obviously back in the days, it was Camaros and muscle cars, and now apparently it is Honda Accords with purple valve covers. But otherwise, this really is a commentary on that, old car, muscle car people will say, well, kids these days, they don't know anything about cars. And now, these aren't even kids anymore. Somebody who was souping up a 90s Honda is probably middle-aged. But it's all the same stuff. It's kind of badly done. It's painted in primer, and there's no hood. That's it. Those are the ingredients.
Yeah. There's so much happening. You got the blacked out headlight. You got the painter's tape on the windshield, obviously holding it in. They've buffed it and primered it. Has the purple everything out of the AutoZone, or I guess O'Reilly's in this case, catalog. When you buy a Honda to build for Lemons, this is 90% of the time what you're starting with, except usually it's not complete. You're buying the halfway B-swap Civic or whatever. So in the ballpark here.
Yep. Indeed.
Ooh, man. Maybe. Kind of an awesome car here, the International Travelall. I will confess that I do not know very much about these, but it was kind of the early SUV, the kind of meant to be the farmer's utility vehicle, and they were marketed at farmers, if I remember right, these and the Scout, as you don't need your tractor to do all of the things. You can ride in comfort, so on and so forth, and not go 6 miles an hour. I think they had a V8 in these, and Judge Phil has been begging people for years to international V8 swap something. I would love to see that. I don't know what, doesn't matter. Camaro would be great. You want to put a V8 in a Miata, making it international. Why not?
Yeah, I think the best starting point for a car that's going to get the international V8 swap, the old corn binder 345, is a car that originally came with an LS. So your 2001 Firebird or whatever, take the LS out, put in the international V8, go on to Lemon's glory.
Yeah, that's how you get a modern car to compete for the IOE.
Exactly. Oh, boy. Well, we've got what I initially thought was some kind of a military truck, which I guess at its heart it is. But reading the caption, it's actually an airport safety vehicle. This is like part of the fire squad that comes and sprays foam on your Spirit Airlines MD-88 after it blew out the landing gear. And you've got a wood grain PT Cruiser. Always love a PT Cruiser. Surprisingly okay Lemons car. One of those cars that actually came with a factory turbo option, and the judges wouldn't look twice at it if you tried to, quote unquote, see through a turbo PT Cruiser. If you bring a Supra turbo or whatever, a WRX turbo, judges are going to look at you in a certain way. PT Cruiser turbo, man, you're likely going in the Class C, baby.
It's Class C all day, yeah. The best part of this is, I don't think we would allow you to race the airport tug. However, it is a tug, and therefore could pull your PT Cruiser at 27 miles an hour to the racetrack.
Right. If you're thinking about doing a cross-country Lemons race, tow it with this thing and tow your wood grain PT Cruiser, and you'll get there by 2029.
Yep.
All right.
Some quality.
Oh, man.
Speaking of turbo cars to go in Class C, you can see it right on the fender there. This is a turbo J-body. I honestly couldn't tell you if this is a Sunbird or a J2000, which are the same thing. J2000 just came first. But I can tell you that the engine they used in these was an Brazilian-built Opel single overhead cam that they shoved a turbo onto. And this is one of my favorite facts about GM, owing to the fact that it's amazing this thing even exists. The stock horsepower on the NA version, about 88 horsepower. When they put the turbo on it, it was rated at like 160. So totally going to live up to Lemon's life with that kind of boost being shoved through it. Other than that, glorified Cavalier.
Oh, man. I was just thinking, because you've mentioned that fun fact about the horsepower before, and I was expecting, stock version's got 88 horsepower and turbo version has 91 and a half or whatever. And then I realized, you tell me, oh, God, it's got 160. There are really only two responses to a General Motors turbo application, either disappointing or alarming. There is like happy middle ground of like, hey, that's a healthy upgrade and would be worth it and probably will work. It's either like, oh man, like why bother? Or like, oh God, you're going to die. This falls into the latter category for sure.
It's actually going to blow the valve cover through the hood.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Next up. Oh man. The Judge Phil Special, first generation Toyota Corona, one of my favorite cars. And I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's just sort of an honesty and earnestness about this car that, I mean, clearly they were thinking about sort of a mid-60s American car like a Falcon or whatever, but then it was made to a normal Japanese scale, which was unusual for America at the time, but then later obviously became very relevant. I mean, this was probably considered a mid-sized car in Japan, but then, later they gave us the Corolla and they gave us the Civic, which obviously were tremendously popular and successful in this country. So it's just kind of a sign of things to come from Japanese manufacturers in terms of making a small car that also worked really well and was relevant to the American consumer. And it's just kind of cute. So I'm into it.
Yeah, I was going to use the word cheerful to describe it,
sure.
Which I think is about right. I don't have a whole lot to add. I know Judge Phil's first one of these had a Power Glide in it, which was, of course, the Toyo Glide.
It had a Toyo Glide, yeah.
It's a license-built 2-speed automatic. So you weren't going anywhere in a hurry in one of these.
Indeed. Last car for the week.
Oh.
No.
Just let that one soak in for a moment. Speaking of 1980s turbo setups that were all or nothing, it's kind of true of all of them. I don't know what the dealership in the background is. It looks like a Ducati dealership or something too. But this is obviously a K-car. I think it's a Reliant. It might be an Aries. It doesn't actually matter. It's a two-door in amazing shape. Iacocca for president. Boy, where would we be if Lee Iacocca was the president?
Well, there was a time when I would have said way worse off, but maybe he would have been all right.
But yeah, going back to the J2000 turbo, Chrysler kind of had similar numbers on their turbos. It was like 80 and 130, which again, alarming, either benign or alarming. And come to think of it, Ford turboed their Escorts and EXPs for a bit, and those went from about 65 to 120. So I think that the whole problem with turbocharging in the 80s was that the engineers were like, yeah, just let it eat. What could possibly go wrong?
Which incidentally is the same logic for modern day drag racers, because turboing is such a big thing on that scene. Get your junkyard 5.3 and the next thing you know, 2,500 horsepower. What could possibly go wrong? I just want to point out, this is some kind of an event, and in the background, I don't know my Chrysler. Someone in the comments, I'm sure, will correct me, but there's some kind of I think B body, possibly C body, dark blue thing from the 60s in the background. And then you got a PT Cruiser and you've got a K car, which kind of really encapsulates Chrysler experience. I mean, the only thing missing here is, a Challenger driving 160 miles an hour in the breakdown lane with no license plates, which is 2022 Chrysler experience. But otherwise, all of the high points along that sort of Mopar ethos are represented. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out.
It's a fine
let's
point.
see. I got the Hoopdias this week. I'm going all the way back to the beginning to our Stockton style Honda Accord. It's got no hood. It's got mismatched wheels, but then it also had some attempt at customization. It's got the air dam. It looks like it's been lowered. I don't know what's going on with the cowl thing. I mean, is that a style statement? Is that the fact that the guy realized, like, hey, when I take the hood off, my feet fill up with water? So I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's somebody who both cares about his car, but also doesn't care about his life, which is an interesting combination.
Yeah. No notes. You nailed it. So there we go. For the Lemons build, boy, it's a tough one. We've only had the one K car. Always happy to see K cars, but you are setting the bar really low for the index of fluency by showing up with a J body with a turbo on it. I think that, obviously this is the nicest one in the world, and part of me would feel a little bit bad if this showed up with a roll cage, but you should be able to find a Sunbird with the turbo engine somewhere and build it for Lemons. Again, Class C with 160 horsepower in a very light car. Well, these were actually really heavy, but point remains, Class C all day with a stick and a turbo, and you could dominate with that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, it's unbeatable.
Right.
That'll do it for this week. Keep tagging your photos with Lemons Car Spotting on Instagram. We'll find them. We'll talk about them.
What do you think the weird internal coding was for the black over black Sunbird turbo?
Oh, for sure. It was something not that clever and derivative of something else. So I'm going to go with Black Devil.
Nighttime.